What's the one thing that blows your mind every time you think about it? How much of our childhood we don't remember, especially the very early years. That for any given one of us, there are quite probably hundreds of thousands of people in the world who would find us attractive and/or fall in love with us, and probably millions who we could be close friends with under the right circumstances. And yet so many of us are so lonely that I have probably driven past a few houses with kidnapped people being trapped inside. Are you the dude that keeps driving past my house? How many chances I must have missed in my life. 7th grade. We're allowed to pick our own seats. Pretty blonde girl sits next to me. Do you think I'm pretty? I want to sit here. Yeah, pretty ugly. 'Cause I'm a dunce and I was a jerk. She moves seats. Proceeds to never talk to me. Turns out to become one of the major high school popular girls. Yeah, I screwed that one up. Random times while I'm driving, I'll think about the other 30 people around me all going about 70 miles per hour on the highway, staying in the lanes and still being 4 to 6 feet away from touching other cars. How is it possible we can manually operate machines going at speeds incomprehensible 100 years ago without killing everyone around us? And to do so without directly communicating with the people around us, but rather all following a loosely agreed upon set of road rules and hoping that everyone else does the same. Yeah, shit's crazy. I am the main part of my dog's life. The butterfly effect. About 6 years ago at about 3 a.m. in a side alley in Auckland, New Zealand, I was mugged for everything I had on me. The police came, took me back to the station and did the whole crime report process. After it was all done, I declined the offer of a ride home, and got my friend to pick me up instead. On the way home, we got a flat tire and had to pull over and knock on someone's door asking for help since we had no tools to change our flat. A woman opened the door, and got her brother to help us out, talked to her etc. and grabbed her number. 6 years later we have a 7-month-old daughter and I couldn't be happier. For a second I thought you were going to say you knocked on a door and the mugger answered it. The size of the galaxy and universe, I can't even begin to comprehend it. That everyone has their own life and I'm a side character. The ocean can be as deep as commercial jet cruising altitudes. Imagining all that water above my head. Why isn't there nothing? Why does anything exist at all? That I feel like I didn't really know my parents as well as I thought. About 7 years ago they both passed away 2 months apart from cancer. I have no siblings and was left to clean everything up and take care of their estate and belongings. I found some stuff that I knew nothing about. Now granted, they were being the best parents they could be and sheltered me from a lot of stuff. But sometimes I feel like that sheltering was a disservice. It just blows my mind how the persona left behind after death are not quite the ones I remember living. I miss them both dearly. Death. It's just bizarre. The fact that we don't know for sure what happens after our consciousness leaves the body terrifies me. Another thing that blows my mind is that the space is so large that there is a possibility that there is an exact copy of Earth somewhere out there. I do not fear death. I had been dead for billions and billions of years before I was born, and had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. Mark Twain was listening to a podcast and it said something like, place a grain of sand in your open palm. The sand is the sun, your hand is the solar system, and the continental United States is the Milky Way. That literally every small decision you've made in life, no matter how insignificant it seemed, lead you to reading this post, and any difference could have altered your life wildly. Every single time I look up into the night sky I'm breathless. I hope I never lose that feeling. Every time I think of a brilliant plan to change the world, I realize there are 7 billion consciousnesses on this planet with different ideals and memories and goals and dreams. DJ Khaled is in some bathroom pointing at his belly in the mirror and saying, another one, and some Muslim girl is arguing with her dad about wearing hijab when they are alone on the farm doing chores, and some old Japanese man is going to catch his last fish and lay in his bed and die later. It's weird that any of this works at all, at times. The fact that the stars, planets, celestial bodies we see from Earth could be long gone based on the increasingly large amount of time it takes for light to travel from them to us. During the night, Your intervertebral discs relax and expand. That is why you are 1% taller in the morning than in the evening. Unfortunately, during the day they compress back down, making you shorter again. To avoid this daily shortening, don't get out of bed. Simply by staying in bed for 20 days, you'll be 20% taller. 100 days, 100% taller. Since taller people are more successful, the longer you stay in bed, the more successful you'll be. I've posted this before, but it blows my mind how much collective work is put into every single thing around us. Pick up a book. The author was not the only one responsible for it being in your hand. So was the owner of the publishing company, the factory worker making sure it was printing correctly, and many others. Look at a building. From the mind of the architect that designed it, the contractor in charge of building it, the construction worker who put his sweat and hard work into those walls. An apple you might have for a snack goes through many people, like the farmer, to the distributor, to the grocer that stocked it on the shelf. Pretty much everything around us had so many people working on it, many that you don't even consider. That's pretty amazing to me. That every living thing ever lived is related to each other, not in some figurative way, but literally. You and I are related. We're both related to George Washington and Buddha, all of us to the giant redwoods in California, and to your dog, and to the last Tyrannosaurus Rex that died of the meteor strike. We're all related to the trilobites, to common cold virus. And we all go back all the way to that first living thing. This just simply blows my mind. I'm a nuclear engineer. My daughter's studying astrophysics. When she starts explaining the behavior of planet clusters from formation to decay, I'm amazed at how similar they act to the nuclei of an atom, especially unstable isotopes. That if you take all of the other planets in our solar system, including Pluto, and place them next to each other, they will all fit in the space between the Earth and the Moon. My life experiences are really only significant to me. Other people may listen to me share, but at the core, everyone is focused on their own experiences, making you feel so insignificant in the sea of other insignificant people. On my kitchen bench are 2 cylinders of salt and pepper just casually sitting there. What used to be magic is now an afterthought. Wars have been fought and empires have risen and fallen over these 2 miraculous products. And now we're so rich we take them for granted and waste them with reckless abandon. This is stuff that men risked sailing into the great unknown on the off chance that they could find a better way to get it and make money from it. Isn't that just capitalism at its purest? Roman soldiers were paid in it. My family, friends and I all throw them all over our food to enhance it or to disguise my terrible cooking. The modern economics, logistics and infrastructure involved to enable us to do that. That's just mind-blowing. There's a lot more ants than humans. A lot more. What do you figure? Like at least 12. I don't know, man. I killed a few ants as a kid, probably down to 7 now. That I was born, the chances of that happening are so small. Asking, "What's your name?" is essentially asking, "What noise do I make to get your specific attention?" That one day this human being, me, would leave this world. They'll put me in a box and burn me until there's nothing but ashes. Everything I've known, everything I've seen, everything that goes on in my head, will be gone and it will never come back. I am a conscious human being who is able to think. My mind blows my mind. That out of all the people in the world, my wife agreed to marry me. It's been 12 years and I still can't figure that shit out. How little we think of others when we're living our own lives. Sometimes I just daydream, I'm sitting here having a coffee, but thousands of miles away someone's detailing their car, someone else is about to get fired, someone's getting boned, someone else is unknowingly in the process of changing the world. Just boggles me sometimes to know that there's literally so much happening around the world in any given moment, but we just carry on living like the rest of the world doesn't exist. That it's impossible for me to imagine a new color. That one of my family members could die and someone on the other side of the world would be just a normal day. That for millennia humans were confined to the ground, and in less than 100 years we went from learning to fly to walking on the moon, and how insane that must sound to someone who lived 1,000 years ago. People walked on the moon and came back alive and well to tell us about it. The oldest living person has witnessed the deaths of billions of people. We can go to the moon and walk on the moon, and yet Windows updates are still atrocious. When a pregnant woman swims, they are basically a human submarine. How individual people who are part of a group that does hateful, awful things to others can be so kind and empathic one-on-one. The converse as well. How people who fight for justice for the downtrodden and devote their lives to activism can be horribly toxic people, repeatedly hurting those around them for their own gain. How self-aware we are and aren't at the same time. When you look in the mirror and think to yourself, wow, I'm really in this bitch, out here living in the world. Movies. We've made it so successfully as a species that we have a whole industry and a wealth of jobs just devoted to hour-long entertainment sessions. How small and insignificant humanity is in the grand scheme of it all. That this newborn I'm holding was inside my body days ago. Also that people push babies that are 2 to 3 pounds bigger than my newborn in my arms out of their bodies. The amount of people in the world. There are so many people, all different and unique. There are also people living in completely different situations than you, who go about their day-to-day lives way different. All these people, and you'll only really meet a fraction of them. That this experience of existence is so deeply tied to both good and bad things, that regardless of how we perceive an event, it is still a part of something so profoundly beautiful and balanced. Even our ability to perceive it comes from cataclysm and extinction. On a cosmic scale, stars exploded and planets collided to create the conditions that allow us to exist. On a human scale, all of the good and all of the bad in history come together to form the life I am experiencing, and what I identify as myself could not exist without it. That my older brother actually passed away. I still occasionally wake up in the middle of the night thinking he's alive and have to remind myself he isn't. The worst is when you were still at home and you see something your sibling would find funny and you go to shout upstairs to tell them to come see this, and just before you shout you remember, they can't hear you anymore. How small children learn. I'm talking like 2 to 4 years old. In that time, they internalize concepts like language. How they are a separate entity from everyone else. Risk versus reward. They take in so much information and turn it around to use it in such little time. It's absolutely boggling to me. Right now is the youngest you'll ever be for the rest of your life, and the oldest you've been so far. How well mathematics describes the natural world. For example, it amazes me that 4 little equations describe the behavior of electromagnetic radiation, or how gravity can be so well described by one simple equation. How insanely random it is that my kids are who they are. It's just one single moment. One gamete meets another and becomes a cell, and from there, they're growing into people with personalities and their own lives. It amazes me every time I look at them. All words are made up. The fact that the universe is 14 billion years old, and I am 21 and think that, damn, 2010 was a lifetime ago. Relativity. Still remember walking out of my year 12 physics class after learning about it for the first time and not being able to focus on anything else for the rest of the day. How hands move just by us thinking about it. It's pretty rad. Ellen is 60 years old. It blows my mind how much time I've wasted over the years, also how the worst years in my youth were some of my happiest, and how I might look back later wishing my life sucked as much as it does now. The universe is expanding, so presumably its outer edges are pushing into nothingness. I just can't grasp the concept of void, like literal particles of matter are touching nothing, not just empty space but nothing. The fact that time only exists because of consciousness. The very essence of our lives is simply a matter of perspective. The endless love that dogs have to give. That every single human being on Earth right now is alive because each one of their ancestors had sex, and most likely intentionally. And so if you were to deliberately not have children, as many people in today's society choose to do, you would be the first in your entire lineage to not procreate. Space is expanding at some wild value per millisecond, all the time. Wild. The fact you can type any question to your browser, anything at all, and you have a very high chance of getting it answered in just a couple of minutes. So much information is at your fingertips. There is nothing you can't start learning by yourself whenever you want. And here I'm sitting, writing meaningless crap to Reddit. Sigh. Everything we do on purpose is selfish. DNA. That I'm a part of the universe that is thinking about itself. Consciousness is completely mysterious and baffling. Death. Like, that's it. I'm a meat robot. Boom. Game over. No more thoughts. No more anything. It's such a normal thing to happen, but it's still so final. If Einstein was right, E equals mc2, given the right circumstances, matter and energy are interchangeable, and boobs. The dark web. Every time I hear stories about it and how many people are a part of it, I just can't wrap my head around it. Every time I go anywhere or do anything, I look at people and wonder, are you one of these people? Do you sell children for a living? Do you dispose of bodies professionally? Creeps me out every time. Plenty of people have use for encryption and privacy. It's not all human trafficking and arms dealing. In times like these, everyone's got something to hide or protect, especially the innocent.